Have you ever noticed how the people who say yes to everything are often the loneliest? There's something strange about the person who's always available, always accommodating, always bending themselves into shapes that fit other people's needs. They're surrounded by requests, by demands, by people who need something. And yet, when you look closer, there's a kind of isolation in their agreeability, a distance in their proximity. They say yes with a smile. They volunteer before anyone asks. They rearrange their entire schedule for your convenience. And you might think this is kindness, generosity, the mark of a good person. But what if I told you that the inability to say no isn't about generosity at all? What if it's something much more complex and much more painful? What's really happening inside the mind of someone who can't say no? The surface observation. You know this person. Maybe you are this person. They respond to texts immediately. They agree to plans that exhaust them. They take on projects they don't have time for. They say, of course, no problem, when inside they are thinking, I can't handle one more thing. From the outside, they look selfless, capable, strong. But here's the thing, this isn't strength. This is survival. Because when you can't say no, you are not choosing generosity. You are avoiding something much more terrifying. You are avoiding the possibility of rejection, of disappointment, of anger, of being seen as selfish, difficult, or unworthy. You are avoiding the fear that if you don't say yes, people will stop asking. And if people stop asking, maybe they'll stop wanting you around at all. The hidden complexity. Let's go deeper. The inability to say no doesn't begin in adulthood. It begins in childhood, in the small moments when you learned what kept you safe, what kept you loved. Attachment theory tells us that children develop strategies to maintain connection with their caregivers. If you grew up in an environment where love felt conditional, where approval came when you were helpful, compliant, or convenient, you learned something crucial. Your value is tied to your usefulness. You learned that no creates distance, that boundaries equal rejection, that your needs are negotiable, but other people's needs are not. And so you became fluent in accommodation. You developed an early warning system that detects disappointment before it fully forms. You became an expert at reading rooms, anticipating needs, smoothing tension. But here's what's fascinating. This wasn't weakness. This was intelligence. This was a child figuring out how to survive in an environment where connection felt fragile. The problem is, you are not a child anymore. But the strategy remains. The psychological mechanisms. So what's really happening in your brain when someone makes a request? Here's the truth. When you can't say no, there's a collision happening between your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for rational decision-making, and your amygdala, the ancient alarm system that detects threats. For most people, a request is just information to consider. But for you, a request activates your threat response. Because somewhere deep in your nervous system, saying no is a threat. It threatens your sense of safety, your sense of belonging, your sense of being lovable. Research on people-pleasing behaviors shows that individuals who struggle to set boundaries often have hyperactive mirror neuron systems. You don't just understand other people's emotions, you absorb them. Their disappointment becomes your panic. Their frustration becomes your failure. And this is where it gets complex. You are not just afraid of their reaction. You are afraid of what their reaction will confirm. That you are too much, too demanding, too difficult. That the real you, the one with needs and limits, is fundamentally unacceptable. So you say yes, again, and again, and again. And each time you do, you reinforce a devastating equation. My needs, their needs. The cost. But what happens to all those unspoken no's? They don't just disappear. They accumulate. Think of it like this. Every time you say yes when you mean no, you create a small betrayal. Not of them, of yourself. You cancel your plans to accommodate theirs. You work late on someone else's project. You loan money you needed. You host the gathering when you wanted quiet. You smile through conversations that drain you. And each time, a part of you whispers, why doesn't anyone ask what I need? But here's the painful truth. They don't ask because you never tell them. You've trained people to expect your yes. You've made yourself so available that your presence becomes assumed. Your effort becomes invisible. And the cost? The cost is your sense of self. Because when you are constantly shapeshifting to fit other people's needs, you lose touch with your own. You stop knowing what you actually want, what you actually feel, what you actually believe. Your identity becomes defined by your usefulness. And usefulness is exhausting. Because it never ends. There's always one more favor. One more task. One more person who needs something. And slowly, quietly, you start to disappear. The paradox. And here's where it gets really interesting. The people who can't say no are often the most resentful. You heard that right. The person who appears most generous is often harboring the deepest anger. But it's not anger at other people, not really. It's anger at yourself. For betraying yourself. For abandoning your own needs. For building a life that requires your constant self-erasure. Psychologists call this hostile complying. You agree on the surface while seething underneath. You say, happy to help, while thinking, I can't believe I have to do this. And the cruelest part? You can't even express this anger directly. Because that would mean acknowledging that you don't actually want to say yes. That you have limits. That you are not the infinitely accommodating person you've pretended to be. So the anger turns inward. It becomes depression, anxiety, physical illness, burnout. Your body starts saying the no's your mouth can't speak. You get migraines, exhaustion, mysterious aches that have no clear cause. This is your system trying to protect you. Trying to create the boundary you won't create consciously. The deeper pattern. But let's talk about what's really being protected when you say yes to everything. It's not just about avoiding conflict. It's about avoiding abandonment. Because if people really knew you, if they saw your limits, your needs, your imperfections, would they still want you? This is the core belief driving the inability to say no. I am only lovable when I am giving. You've confused love with transaction, connection with sacrifice, relationship with performance. And so you perform. Endlessly. You become the friend who's always there. The colleague who never refuses. The family member who handles everything. The partner who accommodates every preference. But here's what you are not becoming. No. Because true intimacy requires vulnerability. It requires showing people who you actually are, not just who you can be for them. When you can't say no, you prevent real closeness. You create relationships based on your usefulness, not your inherent worth. And deep down, you know this. You know that people love what you do for them, not necessarily who you are. And that's terrifying. Because it means you can never rest. You can never stop performing. Because the moment you do, the moment you reveal your limits, you fear the relationship will collapse. The recognition. So let's take a breath here. If you are recognizing yourself in this, if you are feeling that uncomfortable clarity that comes with being seen, I want you to know something. You are not broken. You developed a strategy that made sense given your experiences. You learned to be hypervigilant to other people's needs because, at some point, your survival depended on it. But here's what you might not have realized. The people who truly care about you don't want you to disappear into accommodation. They want to know you. The real you. With boundaries. With needs. With limits. And the people who only want your yes? They were never actually in relationship with you. They were in relationship with your utility. This is the distinction that changes everything. The shift. So how do you start saying no when your entire system is wired to say yes? The truth is, you don't start with the word no. You start with awareness. You start by noticing the moment between request and response. That split second where you can feel the automatic yes forming. The tightness in your chest. The anxiety that spikes. The fear that whispers, say yes or lose them. Just notice it. Don't judge it. Don't try to change it yet. Because healing doesn't begin with forcing different behavior. It begins with understanding the behavior you already have. Ask yourself, what am I afraid will happen if I say no? And then, here's the important part. Ask yourself, is this fear based on what's happening now, or what happened then? Because often, you are not responding to the person in front of you. You are responding to the child inside you who learned that no meant loss. The practice. Start small. Start where the stakes are low. Say no to something minor. No, I'll pass on that forwarded email. No, I can't meet at that time. No, I don't want to watch that show. And then, this is crucial, notice that you survived. Notice that the relationship didn't end. That the person didn't abandon you. That the world kept turning. You are retraining your nervous system. Teaching it that no is not a catastrophe. That boundaries create health, not distance. But here's what's really happening when you learn to say no. You are not just setting boundaries. You are reclaiming yourself. You are saying, I matter. My time matters. My energy matters. My needs matter. And this is revolutionary for someone who's spent their life believing the opposite. The truth about boundaries. Here's something nobody tells you about boundaries. They don't push people away. They bring the right people closer. Because when you have boundaries, you create space for authentic connection. You stop performing and start relating. You stop managing everyone's emotions and start having your own. And yes, some people will be confused. Some will be disappointed. Some will push back because they benefited from your boundarylessness. But these reactions are information. They are showing you who was in relationship with your authentic self and who was in relationship with your compliance. The people who truly care about you will respect your no. They'll be glad you are being honest. They'll appreciate that you are taking care of yourself. Because healthy people don't want relationships based on self-abandonment. They want relationships based on truth. The deeper invitation. But let's go even deeper for a moment. Learning to say no isn't just about boundaries. It's about identity. It's about answering the question, who am I when I'm not accommodating everyone? For many people who can't say no, this question is terrifying. Because you've built your entire sense of self around being helpful, being needed, being the one who manages everything. So who are you without that role? This is the identity crisis that comes with boundary setting. And it's painful, disorienting, but it's also liberation. Because on the other side of that question is a version of you that's not performing, not managing, not constantly scanning for what others need. A version of you that knows what you need, what you want, what brings you alive. A version of you that understands this profound truth. Your worth is not conditional. It doesn't require constant earning. It's not based on what you provide. You are valuable because you exist, not because you are useful. The final reframe. So let's come back to where we started. The person who can't say no seems generous, available, kind. But maybe the real generosity, the real kindness, is learning to say no. Because when you can say no, your yes actually means something. It's not automatic. It's not coerced. It's not driven by fear. It's a choice. And maybe that's what relationships are supposed to be built on. Not endless accommodation. Not self-sacrifice. Not the erasure of one person's needs for another's comfort. But mutual respect. Honest communication. The courage to be imperfect and still believe you are worthy. Maybe learning to say no isn't about becoming selfish. Maybe it's about becoming whole. Maybe it's about trusting that people can handle your truth. That relationships can survive honesty. That you can have limits and still be lovable. Maybe it's about understanding that the right people, the real people, don't want you to disappear. They want you to show up. Fully. Authentically. With boundaries that protect your well-being. And maybe, just maybe, the journey from, I can't say no, to, I can choose, is actually the journey from performing to belonging. From hiding to being seen. From surviving to living. You don't have to say yes to everything to deserve love. You never did.